Welcome. Today my guest is Loraine Martins. Loraine is Director of Diversity and Inclusion with Network Rail. She's been in the role for 6 years and she's going to be giving us some insights and some tips in what it is to be a successful strategist. In GC Index terms, she has a strong strategist profile, and we're going to learn from her experience about the skills that have underpinned her success. Loraine, the strategist profile suits you, someone who's keen to see purpose and meaning in endeavour, capable of seeing patterns and trends, joining up the dots. Does this describe you?
It describes me to a T, John. I guess the things that I identify quite regularly are different initiatives, different patterns of behaviour. I look at data to inform some of the environment that I'm looking in. I immerse myself in kind of things that are happening and really try to draw those things together for the bigger picture, and then think about how I can help others see that bigger picture and understand how they might help to contribute to it.
Yes, and that's the crux of it, it strikes me. But just being a little nosy, have you always had that curiosity about the relationship between events, looking back?
I think I have actually, and I think part of it may in part be in how I've been raised. So as a young black woman born in London, grew up in the 60s, my parents were quite articulate, but they were also part of that generation of people that were not necessarily welcomed here, although they were invited to this country. And I guess they identified a lot of activities and things were happening in the time and kind of, fitted their experience into a broader experience, which I guess myself and my brother and sister kind of imbibed.
Yes. So making sense of things has been part of your life, given that.
Absolutely.
That early experience. And you were talking then about, it's interesting, isn't it, what you may be able to see because of that proclivity, but the challenge of sharing that with other people. Does it come easily to you to see the big picture, to see patterns and trends?
I think it does. I don't know whether that's nature or nurture, but I think, at my stage of my career, that's actually the thing that I go to first and foremost. How do I identify what needs to be done? How does that link with other elements of activities and initiatives that we're driving? And how can I get other people to see those patterns and understand those patterns and make the link between the business of whatever it is that we're doing?
And I think that's where our learning is going to be. So seeing things comes readily to you.
Yes.
Sharing what you see in your head, I guess, presents other challenges.
Yes, it does, because my particular discipline is around diversity and inclusion. And so enabling people to understand diversity and inclusion in a broader sense that they may already understand it is one of the things that I need to be able to do. And so I need to be able to paint a picture of the direction of travel and that helps people understand why they might want to apply diversity and inclusion principles, why it's good for them, why it's good for the business, what the benefits are, what the added value is. I have to be able to help them see that picture.
Let me slow you down a bit, because that's rich, that description. Let's dig into it. The painting of a picture, the language seems quite deliberate. Is that what you consciously do when you're engaging others?
I think I have to, partly because the discipline of diversity and inclusion can feel a bit amorphous. And everybody has a slightly different picture in their minds. So what I try to do is give it a broad sweep and enable people to put their kind of smaller picture into that bigger piece.
Oh, that's interesting. Have you got an example of how that works?
If I start with some of the work that we've been doing at Network Rail. So we have a strategic objective, which is to make the business a much more open, inclusive and diverse organisation. So how does that translate into the rail sector when really our focus is about getting people and freight from A to B? So my picture to people is, well, everybody is impacted by diversity and inclusion. Everybody is diverse, we all have our individual traits and features, and we can all bring that to bear on how we understand what we're doing. And the more that we're enabled to bring ourselves into the business, to bring our expertise, our lens, the better we are able to perform, the more that we're able to understand each other, the better that we can coalesce, collaborate, and deliver a much better trained performance. So the picture is, for me, our raison d'etre is about getting people and freight from A to B, and everybody has a part to play in that, irrespective of where you sit in the business. And as long as you're able to give of yourself, then actually you'll be contributing your part. I think the challenge is, if you feel in any way that you're inhibited from contributing, that's when you get excluded from the environment, and therefore our performance is diminished.
There was something else in there that just feels subtle too, because I think often the mistake that strategists make is that what they see is the reality that becomes a prescription for others, so much more directive, and it sounds that that's not your style. So there's this painting of a picture, but allowing people freedom to make sense of what that means for them.
I think that's really important, because fundamental to what I'm doing is trying to change an environment and a culture and an industry.
Yes.
And if I'm not able to engage people in that vision, then we will remain the same.
Yes.
So I have to enable people to feel some ownership of the direction of travel, rather than feel it's been imposed on them or it's something that they want to resist.
It would be contradictory.
It would
absolutely
be contradictory. Absolutely.
Yes, to say this is what it
Yeah.
looks like in practice. Off you
that's
go.
Right, that's right, off you go. And for some people that might work, and for others it won't work. They have, so you have to. I think being a strategist, you have to think about the different audiences that you're playing to, the different stakeholders that you have to respond to in order to deliver the strategy.
Can you give us a bit of flavour around that, because that's interesting, the different audiences.
Yeah, so you can have a board who will have a very high level understanding and appreciation of the task at hand or the objective, or they may well have set it. And then you'll have the leadership, the paid executives, who will undertake, whatever activities need to be done and filter those down. And then you'll have somebody who might be an operative or a signaller who is slightly distant from the bigger picture, who needs to understand what it means for their day-to-day activity. So to be able to explain that and distill it in very straightforward, simple terms, I think is really important for something like diversity and inclusion.
Yes. So by giving people the principles, letting them run with that and turn it into practice, for you is brought great returns.
I think it's absolutely key. I think any strategist needs to align what they're doing to the business.
Yeah, there is something about alignment,
if you don't do that, then you struggle in a sense. You're buttressing up against the business, and therefore it becomes a much more difficult task to achieve.
Loraine, thank you so much for your time and your wonderful insights. Much appreciated, and I'm sure our audience will learn a good deal from them. Thank you
for inviting me.